We're better to start off then with the routing section. The first thing we want to look at is the two files in the routes folder. web.php, which defines routes that are used for general web interface, api.php, which are used for stateless interactions, mainly API work. We are going to concentrate mostly on the web.php file, which is used by most applications. However, almost everything we learned can be applied to the API file too. The first thing I want to discuss is the list of available router methods. Each plays a different role in your application and all are important. It's important for the exam that you learn the different available router methods available. Get, which is to read, post, which is to create, put, which is to update or replace, patch, which is to update or modify, delete, which is obviously to delete, and finally options, which allows the settings of headers. We'll be covering most of these in this section, so don't worry if you don't have a clear picture on what each one does. The first example I want to show is defining a GET request with a callback. We can do this with the following syntax. Root, get, the URL, and the callback. The callback we are using is an anonymous function, which will be called when we visit the URL hello. Now we've got that, let's see what happens when we visit hello in our browser. As expected, hello world is returned as we stated in our callback. You can do this with any of the route actions we defined earlier depending on your requirements. You can even match several router methods like this get and post action. This comes to an interesting topic. How can we test other action methods? When you enter a URL into a browser URL bar and hit enter, that's called a GET request. When you want to perform a POST request, we have to build up a form with an action stating POST, but that's kind of tedious. Luckily, there is a free excellent tool called Postman. It's from the website getpostman.com. It allows us to set the router method to whatever we want to use against any URL. An important thing to note is that not all browsers support all router methods. Some will only support the standard get and post. We can fix this by doing something called form method spoofing. Here I have an example of a form action that is stated as a post, but what we really want to do is set it as a put, because I want this to update some content and not create it. Remember, post is to create, while put is to update. But how do I get this to work with all browsers? Simple. We define the form with the method post as usual. Then we use the Laravel helper method field put. All this helper method does is it generates a hidden form element. This tells Laravel, once it's submitted by the user, that even though we are submitting this as a post, what we really want is a put request. You'll mostly experience this requirement in older browsers like Internet Explorer. Browsers like Chrome do not necessarily need this, but you should always include it just in case. I want to discuss one more helper method before we end this video on basic routing, and that is the CSRF protection. CSRF stands for Cross-Site Request Forgery. This stops a website from pretending to be a user by sending form requests from their website to your Laravel application. Confusing? Yes. So let's take a look at this example. Let's say you are a Gmail user and you're logged into your Gmail account. You visit a bad website and you click on a link. That link says close window. But instead of a closed window, it's actually a hidden form sending data to Gmail to email all your contacts. Because you're already authenticated with Google, this request goes through and the emails get sent. How do you protect against this? You use the helper method CSRF field. In simple terms, this generates a unique code on each page request. When you submit a submission to the server, Google in this case, it confirms your CSRF unique code matches what was provided. A website pretending to be you and sending data would not be able to match this unique code as it's unique to each visitor, so trying to replicate it would be impossible. We've covered a lot in this section, but I also want you to try some of the things we've learnt on your own. It's important to practice. Only practice can provide mastery of a subject. In the next video, we'll continue with routing.